right now, where it is currently 10 p.m. And I wanted to do a quick live for you tonight to give you some breaking news that we're getting from local media inside Israel. And that is they're reporting that IDF special operations troops have entered Lebanon and are conducting military operations inside, across the border, north of Israel, and are doing what are called shaping operations for the upcoming, I guess, invasion that is highly anticipated. Let's say coming basically any minute now. They believe that. At least what we're being told is that these IDF Special Forces troops are doing things such as intelligence gathering, even going into and clearing some of the tunnels. I explained this on the other live I did tonight over on my channel in the Hot Zone, that when special operations troops go in ahead of a conventional force, what they're normally doing is shaping the battlefield for that conventional force. So what that looks like is doing reconnaissance and intelligence gathering, finding, fixing targets for follow-on operations. So to explain this a little bit better, perhaps, there are artillery that are right up on the border. We're talking about Israeli artillery that are ready to fire at targets inside Lebanon. But you can only see so much from the sky. And because of that, the drones and aircraft that they've had flying overhead for the entirety of this war, they can't see a lot of the targets that are down on the ground. They're heavily camouflaged. Sometimes they're even buried or dug into the mountainsides, things like that. They have some very high-tech silos that they've built for some of their missiles that are dug into tunnels into the ground, and then they're just a very small opening that is completely camouflaged. And it has a hydraulic sort of hatch that opens up at the push of a button. So they push the button for the garage door opener, the garage door opens, they fire off their munitions, and then they close it back again. So they know about where they are, but they need to pinpoint them in order to be able to destroy them. So that may be what these troops are doing, going into Lebanon ahead of the main force and finding these very well hidden launchers. There are also a lot of actually false launchers and false headquarters and things like that the Hezbollah operatives have been setting up all across southern Lebanon, because they know that if it's seen from the air, that it's going to catch a bomb, right? So they set up, built out of wood or whatever, and make it look like a site where a launch would take place. And what they're trying to do is get the IDF to drop their munitions on things that don't matter. So in order to tell the real from the fake, sometimes they're going to need people that are on the ground. They're going to need boots on the ground, eyes on the target. If those troops go in and actually find something worth destroying, what they can then do is call in a fire mission for the artillery that they have just on the other side of the border, because the range of that artillery is up to 20 miles or more, which would be able to reach all the way to the Litani River and beyond. So they are finding those targets, they're calling in the grid coordinates, and then the artillery can fire and finish those off. Or in some cases, the special operations troops might be going in looking for a specific communications node or something like that, that they can then destroy when they find it on the ground. Wow. So I'm being a little quieter with my voice here because I'm at a hotel and I don't want to wake up other people because I'm outside on my balcony. And we are only about, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 miles from the border. And there was actually a munition that went astray and landed just to the west of us inside Jordan the night before last. I actually heard the explosion and thought it was something coming all the way from Israel, but it was actually right here in Jordan. The Jordanians, as far as I know, have not said anything about that, or you know, I'm not even positive if it came from Yemen or if it came from Iraq. I'm guessing from Iraq or Syria, but because Syria is very close by here, and it just fell short. The Jordanians have been known to shoot those down if they come over their country, but they did not in this case, and it just landed out in the desert. There's a lot of desert in Jordan, and so they are. The IDF has built a tremendous amount of momentum over the weekend. They have been starting with Operation Grim Beeper last week, as you know. They literally blew the pants off of about 3,000 or 4,000 Hezbollah operatives, and then with the targeting of Hassan Nasrallah in southern Beirut on Friday, that was an absolutely incredible strike. I mean, they dropped more than 80 tons of bunker buster bombs on top of that location in the Dahia neighborhood of southern Beirut, just to make sure that they got their man. And it was highly coordinated so that each one would dig a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And there's, I put a photo up on my website. If you go to chuckholton.com, you can see it over there, of the crater. And it's got some men standing next to it that look like little tiny ants, and the crater is just massive in the ground. How they managed to find the remains of Hassan Nasrallah will be a miracle that goes down in history. I have no idea how they managed to find and identify that it was him. Now, I've seen pictures of fragments of his ring, maybe an amulet he was wearing, something like that. So they were able to identify that, yeah, he was in there and he didn't come out in one piece. But they had a casket for him, and apparently found some part of him to put in that casket, and had a funeral apparently today for him. Now, almost immediately, they designated another man to take his place, and that man was whacked within just hours. He didn't last very long at all. They have yet to name a formal successor at this point, probably because they can't get a hold of anybody that wants the job, or maybe they just tried to page him and the pager didn't work. But nevertheless, there is a spokesperson who came out and gave a briefing today. It was the first video that's been seen since Hassan Nasrallah was taken out. And what he said was that everything's fine. We're still rolling, and we are ready, willing, and able to repel any invasion force that comes into Lebanon. And all of our troops have their orders in the contingency that the leadership is taken out, so they all still know what to do. And so this is, that he's basically trying to put out the word that everything's fine. There aren't a lot of people who believe that. Probably not even people that are part of Hezbollah that believe that. Actually, there are a lot of people that are fleeing from the area right now. People going into Syria. They say something like 120,000 people have fled across the border into Syria now. And believe me, if you have to flee across the border into Syria, if Syria is your option, you're in a bad way. They say that over 1 million people have left their homes in southern Lebanon and have moved north. So they're internally displaced at this point. But that is indicative of the fact that when the IDF puts out the word that we're going to be targeting anything that has a military infrastructure or any kind of military use in southern Lebanon, that the people believe them now. The IDF has managed to make believers out of everybody in southern Lebanon, and these people are fleeing for their lives. Now, a lot of them have been putting up videos on TikTok and in social media saying that they don't have a fight with Israel, that they would be very happy if Israel would come in and finish the job and get rid of Hezbollah, especially the Maronite Christians and people who inhabited the southern part of Lebanon up until several years ago when they were driven out by Hezbollah. So they're surprisingly, the people who seem to be most bothered by the fact that Nasrallah was taken out are the Washington Post and some American commentators who are putting out the word on social media that Hassan Nasrallah was a great orator and he was a shrewd businessman and all that kind of stuff. Well, if the Washington Post thinks he was a great orator, that's actually kind of humorous because in this part of the world, the people here had a nickname for Nasrallah. They called him the Trumpet. And they called him that because he just never stopped blowing his horn. When he got up to speak, he would speak for 3 or 4 hours and just nonstop until people were falling out of their chairs and couldn't stand to listen anymore. So for that and many other reasons, Hassan Nasrallah was not well loved by a lot of people in Lebanon and even Syria and Jordan and other places. Now, of course, he was well loved by some people, the people that he commanded, but many of those people may also be joining the ranks of those who are leaving Lebanon right now because they've decided that discretion is the better part of valor, and they would rather not catch a JDAM anytime soon. And so they've just sort of moseyed on away. I'm not saying that if and when the IDF goes into Lebanon that they're going to be able to take it over without a fight. There's going to be a fight. And it will likely be more difficult and it'll take longer than the fight that they've had in Gaza, which is still ongoing. Now, the reason that they decided to take out Nasrallah and those 16 other high-level commanders that were with him at the moment that the bunker busters came through the ceiling was because he wasn't surrounded by human shields. And they would have already probably done the same thing to Yahya Sinwar in Gaza if he didn't have 50 live Israeli hostages surrounding him at all times. And so this is the intractable problem that Israel is dealing with in Gaza. They are doing their best to continue to clear out the area. There are still rockets flying out of Gaza from time to time. There were a couple that flew out of there today, and they're not hitting anything because they don't really have any launchers left. So they'll dig up a missile somewhere and they'll prop it up on a piece of wood and fire it, but they just sort of aim it north, and that's the best they can do. So they haven't had any real damage or injuries from the rockets out of Gaza, but they're still coming. And that means that there are still a good number of Hamas fighters that are in Gaza who are not done fighting yet. And so they're going to be at it for a while, even though the number of rockets coming out of Gaza on a monthly basis is lower than it was before October 7th at this point. And so the people in the south are able to move back into their homes and be fairly sure that they'll be safe. But the people in the north are not ready to do that yet because Hezbollah is in response for the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, firing everything they can at Israel right now. And if you download the Shofar app, it's TZOFAR, you can see the incoming launches that are being recorded by the Iron Dome system across Israel. And you can see that there are hundreds of alerts every day. Now, what you have to understand about that is that these alerts do not correspond one for one with missiles. So when a munition flies out of Lebanon, the Iron Dome system calculates the trajectory of that missile and then alerts all of the communities in its path, because what they're not sure about is where it's going to come back down again. And they have, it seems to me, gotten a little more liberal in the number of communities that they alert. They used to be very precise and only alert 1 or 2, but now they're alerting a lot around there. Maybe because they've been wrong at times, or maybe because they're just out of an abundance of caution. But they still, the pundits were saying that if Israel struck Hezbollah, doing something like what they just did, taking out Hassan Nasrallah, that they would be looking at something like 5 to 6,000 rockets a day for months on end coming into Israel. That Israel would just be completely overwhelmed by thousands and thousands of munitions flying across the border. But that hasn't happened. There have been hundreds every day, and that's more than what they had before, maybe about double, but nowhere near what they were expecting. And so the upshot is that the Iron Dome system has not been overwhelmed. The majority of those munitions are still falling in open areas or being shot down before they can harm anyone. There have been very few injuries in Israel because of these strikes that have happened over the weekend, even though that Shofar app is going off almost nonstop. I mean, it's just there are almost constant rocket launches out of Lebanon, but and there have been some damages that have been done, some homes that have been hit, and things like that. And actually, one that I heard about in Sfat was an absolute miracle. This rocket hit a house on Shabbat. And it's the house of a family that normally the entire family gets together at that house. The extended family all comes to that house on Shabbat to celebrate Shabbat together. And this weekend for Shabbat, they just decided to go somewhere else for some reason. And that's the weekend that a rocket hit their home. And so nobody was hurt, even though the home was just wrecked. So we are seeing lots of ways that God is intervening and is keeping his hand on the people of Israel. And so the Israelis now are trying to capitalize on the momentum that they have built over the weekend and over the past couple of weeks. And you know who their biggest enemy is in trying to stop them from doing that? The United States, the Biden administration, and the United Nations. The United States, the UK, the UN, they're all calling for a 21-day ceasefire in the north. Now, if you have your enemy on his back foot, if he's reeling from your attacks, and all you have to do is keep up the pace for a little while longer, and you could potentially wipe him out, that's the worst time to have a ceasefire. There's no impetus at all for the person who's winning the fight to stop fighting and allow their assailant or their opponent to recover and rest and then regain his strength in order to fight you some more. What you want to do is finish him off so that he can never fight you again. And so the United States has been just pushing so hard on the Israelis to get them to agree to a 21-day ceasefire, but Israel's not having it. And it's obvious that the reason that the United States is doing this is because they are looking at the elections that are just over a month away, and they cannot have an escalation in this conflict because it will hurt the incumbent party. And so that may also be the reason why Israel has decided now is the time to go hard against Hezbollah and to hit them as hard as they can and not stop, because all of a sudden Israel actually has some leverage over the United States in this. Because if they continue, they will actually be helping the non-incumbent party in this election gain points, right? And it's likely that Benjamin Netanyahu is looking at his options for the next American administration, and he is making a statement with his actions right now about which candidate he would like to see win that election. That is eminently possible. That definitely factors into the political calculus here for what's about to happen. Now, Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, went up to the north today and spoke to some of the various brigades of troops who are on the northern border. They've been training up there. I've gone up and spoken with some of those soldiers personally. All of those soldiers believe, look, this is the time for us to do this. We've got to get it done, and we know we can do it because after the experience that we've gotten out of Gaza, we realize that we have what it takes to defeat our adversary, Hezbollah, and we want to get in the fight and get it over with. These young guys are raring to go. They're trained, they're ready, they're equipped, and they want to make it happen. So Yoav Gallant went up there and encouraged them and told them, look, Don't listen to what the pundits say. Don't listen to all this talk about the 21-day ceasefire. That is not your concern right now. Your concern is to be laser focused on doing what you have to do as soon as you get the call to go. And it's very likely that that will be happening quite soon, quite soon. Okay, I'm going to look at your comments here and answer a few questions. See if we've got, I'm going to scroll back here. Most of Lebanon stands with Israel. Yeah, that's actually true. As a matter of fact, you know, the Lebanese are really, really tired of what Hezbollah has done to them. And a lot of Lebanese are putting up stuff on social media saying just that. I was just in Armenia talking to a bunch of people from Iran who have fled Iran into Armenia and fled the current regime. And you know what they told me? They said, you don't have to worry about Iran getting involved with this because they can't afford it. If you look at what Israel just did today down in the south, in Yemen, this is pretty embarrassing for the United States, honestly. The U.S. has a lot of naval assets in the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandab Straits, and the Gulf of Aden. And Houthis have been firing munitions at our ships on an almost daily basis for some time now. And yesterday alone, they fired 12 different types of munitions at one of our Navy destroyers. And they were all taken down by our anti-missile systems, and so none of them struck their targets, but there was no response from the United States. They didn't send fighter jets in to, you know, take out any positions or even go bomb a you know, empty warehouse in Yemen. They didn't do anything. And on the same day, the Houthis fired a ballistic missile at Israel. Now, it was taken down before it crossed into Israel by the Arrow defense system, but Israel responded with great force, more than 10 waves of fighter jets that went down there and struck the port in Hodeidah and was it Ras Isa or something like it, Ran Isa? They're two major ports. They struck the oil facilities there, the petroleum storage facilities and that sort of thing, and made it so that those ports are all but out of commission. And that is going to definitely hurt the Houthis, who use most of the fuel themselves to fuel their war effort. I don't know how much it'll hurt the regular people inside Yemen, because those people are already at a practically Stone Age level. I mean, to say they're going to bomb Yemen back to the Stone Age is kind of a ridiculous statement, because it's not that far from where they are right now. But Israel went down and slapped Yemen, and slapped them good, hit them hard. And that just, to do that after the United States sat back and did nothing, after we had them firing directly on our ships over and over and over again, is pretty embarrassing for the United States. It makes the U.S. look weak, and it makes Israel look strong. And they put out the Israelis put out a press statement after that strike and said, you know, the port of Hodeidah is 1,800 kilometers from Israel, and we had no problem striking them. And you know, just saying, but Iran's oil facilities, their major oil facilities, are only 1,600 kilometers from Israel. I mean, just saying, right? They're only 1,600 kilometers away. And so this is what the people in Armenia that I talked to, the Iranians there, were telling me. They're saying that, look, Iran has not responded to a lot of these attacks simply because they are deathly afraid that Israel is going to send their jets over there and take out all of their oil facilities, which is about their only source of revenue anymore. And if that happens, the whole economy could collapse. And it's already on the brink, apparently. So according to these actual Iranian citizens I was talking to last week, they say, look, Israel doesn't have to worry about a major conflict erupting with Iran. Iran is going to try to fight Israel through its proxies. And unfortunately for them, two of those major proxies have been severely diminished over the last year, diminished to the point where they're almost not much of a threat, or not anywhere near what they were before. Okay, so let me take a look at your comments here. Any news about Sinwar? Nothing. And apparently they have not heard from him in a long time. And there are a lot of rumors out there that Sinwar might be taking a dirt nap. Well deserved. He's a tired guy. Let's see here. There's coming a great, yeah, okay. We need to pray for Israel, that's for sure. Okay, question. Are most Hezbollah warriors underground in tunnels? Any of them that are left most likely are, because a lot of people have fled that area in southern part of Lebanon, south of the Litani River. And right now, Israel is flying a lot of ISR missions over that area, and any vehicles that are moving, you can bet that they're taking a really hard look at them. And they've had a lot of vehicles in that area that have spontaneously combusted over the past, few months. And so it's not likely that a lot of Hezbollah guys are out joyriding in their cars right now. Somebody asked if the U.S. trained the IDF Special Forces. No, they do once in a while. We'll do some training together, but U.S. Special Forces don't go and train the the Israeli Special Forces. Yeah, that's right. Today the Israelis took out the leader of Hamas in Lebanon. Now, if that confuses you, if you say, I thought Hamas was in Gaza, yes, they were, but they also have cells in the West Bank, in Lebanon, and in Syria. And so the leader of Hamas in Lebanon was taken out, or his car spontaneously combusted today. And it turns out he was a teacher in an UNRWA school. He was an employee of UNRWA. If there's anybody anymore who doubts that UNRWA was not a wholly owned subsidiary of Hamas, they just are willfully deluded. There's no two ways about that. Okay, this guy keeps asking about U.S. Special Forces. Question, do you think Bibi gave God enough credit in his speech? No, I don't think he did. Let's pray the hostages are still with us. Yes, amen to that. Okay. Yeah, Gadabout, I answered your question. You don't have to keep asking it. Let's see here. Oh, other thing I wanted to talk about was that the Israelis have essentially established an air blockade over Lebanon, meaning they are not allowing any aircraft that they don't want into Lebanon to enter Lebanon. And so there have been a couple of times already where there have been aircraft coming in from either Iran or Iraq, and the control tower in Beirut gets a phone call from the IDF saying, if that plane lands, it will spontaneously combust on contact with the tarmac there. And so it would be a good idea that it not come to Beirut today. And shortly after that, those planes turn around and go back home. Israel is doing this because they have realized that a lot of those apparently civilian aircraft that were flying into Beirut did not have human beings sitting in the seats. They had artillery shells sitting in the seats, or tubular complaints, as we like to say, those long missile-like items that are so apt to just go flying off at Israel at a moment's notice. Okay. So let's see. What's your opinion of the Third Temple? Not going to answer that one. I'm not the guy to ask that question to. Let's see. Yeah, there's Marlene. Will the U.S. also put boots on the ground along with Israel? Thank you, Jesse M. Good question. No. Next question. The United States is not going to send troops into this conflict. If at the very most, they will assist Israel with targeting and intelligence. And perhaps if things got really, really bad, they might fly some airplanes in there to shoot down some tubular complaints that are flying toward Israel. But they have not done that yet. And they've already said that they will not be taking part in this at all. Mark Marshall is asking where I see this going. I see it going about like we expect right now, meaning that the IDF is going to go into Lebanon. This will take some time because there are still plenty of people there who are ready to fight. And the IDF is going to have to clear those tunnels and clear those trench lines and clear those firing positions. And once they do that, there's a very good chance that the IDF is going to stay there and hold that territory south of the Litani River for years. They're for the indefinite future. They will have a buffer zone that is monitored by the IDF. That's the most likely outcome at this point. Okay. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention here, we've got 7,000 people online. I just wanted to mention this. I have been doing a series over on my channel called The Hot Zone with Chuck Holton here on YouTube. I've been doing a series about how to survive the potential unrest that we may see in the United States after this presidential election. A lot of people feel this way. People have been asking me about it for a long time, asking me to do this, saying that they believe that this may be one of the most contentious elections in our lifetime. And I don't disagree. And so no matter who wins the election, there's a very good chance that there may be some localized or even generalized, what I call loss of civility. And if there is, you need to know how to keep your family safe. You need to know what to do to keep your family safe if there's a mob of people coming down your street, setting things on fire, or even if you just live in North Carolina and you just got a lot of rain and there's flooding and stuff like that, and we need to pray for those people. By the way, since I have so many people online, let me ask this question. Maybe you can all help me with this. CBN is looking for a helicopter to take Operation Blessing aid into the people in North Carolina who are suffering right now. We had one lined up and it had to cancel on us. And so we're floundering around looking for another helicopter. If you have a contact that can get a hold of a helicopter that we can rent, that can take our Operation Blessing team into the affected area in North Carolina, please get in touch with me. You can email me at hotzoneholton@gmail.com. hotzoneholton@gmail.com. Please send me an email if you have the ability to help us find a helicopter to get into North Carolina. But as I was saying, I've had a lot of people asking me to do a video about how to survive the coming elect apocalypse, is what we're calling it. And so I did. I put up a video about that, and it was so popular that I ended up, I mean, it just was I was taking notes and writing things down about that we needed to talk about. And it got to be so much that I just put it into a booklet form and put it up on my website, chuckholton.com. So if you'd like to get the notes that I put together into kind of a manual for how to survive the coming unrest, you can go to chuckholton.com and you can find it there. You have to subscribe, and it's called Survival Mapping. Okay. It's called Survival Mapping, and it's based on human terrain mapping, which is something that the U.S. military does when it goes into a non-permissive environment. And so I sort of adapted it to the situation that we're in now. I also just finished another booklet on how to prepare your church for the coming challenges that we may face in the United States, and put together a crisis team for your church out of your men's ministry or whatever, and do it so that your church can be ready to be a light when things go dark. Okay. And you can find that at chuckholton.com as well. So I recommend that you go over there and take a look at that. You can follow me over at chuckholton.com, or you can go to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton and see the video that I did on that topic. I just wanted to say that here because there have been so many people asking for it. It's been very popular over there. So go subscribe at chuckholton.com and you can see those. Now, with boots on the ground, how would Israel keep Hezbollah out of the south of the Litani River? Well, they would have blocking positions at all the roads that are going into that area, and they would be checking the vehicles going in. They would be flying drones and aerial patrols over the area and would be looking at anybody, with thermal optics and things like that, who might be trying to sneak in across the mountains or through the forests. That's what they would do. If somebody got 200,000, are they flying in? No, well, they were flying in. Yes, they were flying in. I try not to say the M word too much because YouTube then likes to demonetize the video. But we call them tubular complaints. And yes, they found out they were flying them in on what were supposed to be civilian airliners coming out of Tehran into Beirut. And so that's why the IAF is now putting up an air blockade over Lebanon and not allowing those flights to come in from those areas. With Hezbollah leadership gone, who is directing Hezbollah on the ground now? Well, it's going to be down to local leadership, anybody who was still left that wasn't important enough to have a beeper. And that's not very many people. So yes, there are still people there. And yes, they probably went through plans for what to do if the entire leadership got taken out. But now those guys that are left on the ground are looking around and having to make a decision. Like, do I want to implement those, emergency plans, or do I want to get in a bus and go to Syria and kind of wait this one out? Where am I? I am in Amman, Jordan tonight, right across the Dead Sea from the land. And I will be here for about a week, and then I will be back in Israel, and we'll be coming to you from there. We have a tour of our viewers that are here with us right now. We have about 50 people, and we're going to be seeing the sites here and then going over to stand with the people on the other side on the 7th. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be some pretty powerful stuff. Okay, that's about all I have time for tonight. It's 10:30, and I've got a lot of stuff to do, so I just wanted to get on and make this short live for you. If you have questions or comments, feel free to get in touch with me, hotzoneholton@gmail.com, or like I said, go to chuckholton.com and you can follow me over there. All right, God bless you. Let's say a prayer, and then we'll go. Lord God, we come to you tonight and we just ask for your wisdom, that you would just put your wisdom and discernment into the hearts and the minds of everybody who is having to make the decisions about what to do in this conflict. Lord, I pray that you would just make yourself known to your people. Father, that you would make yourself so apparent to them. They wouldn't be able to take credit for all the amazing miracles that are happening on a daily basis right now, that they would have to point to you and they would have to give you glory for what's being done. Lord, I pray for the people who are in North Carolina, who are, and Georgia and elsewhere, who are suffering after this storm went through. And I just pray that they would get their power back, that they would be able to survive, and that they would come together as a community, and that their churches would be the place that they look to for help, and that they would be able to find help there because people have prepared and are coming and willing to volunteer. Lord, I pray that you would keep our tour group safe, that you would give us divine appointments, you would go ahead of us and behind us, and that you would watch over us as we're here, and that you would bless the people that we meet through us. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, folks, God bless you, and we'll see you again next time. Take care.